There we are.
Thank you so much for accommodating me. Will is fine, yeah. Although people have called me Indie, which I don't know if I've really earned yet, but I suppose we'll get there. Yeah, so I'm a critic. I run a film review channel called Indietrix Film Reviews. I originally posted short films and tutorials and stuff on there, and now that's very much separate, but I am a filmmaker in my other job, my other role. And as a film critic, I've predominantly done YouTube. I've done some video essays that have gone on the channel as well, but they're mostly just reviews. And I actually have my first big commissioned video for a UK magazine called Little White Lies coming out probably this week. So yeah, exciting. Which one? Why Captain America Civil War is the worst Marvel movie yet. Probably my second most clickbaity video, and the one, actually it's a good topic for this because it's the one I've gotten by far the most hate for, so. Mm. Yeah, I don't know how much of that is because of the rise of social media and stuff. I think it's easier for people to interact directly with critics than it was before. Certainly, if you look back at like letters pages for film magazines and newspapers, you can see often reactions to critics, but that's less overwhelming, I suppose, than when you've got Twitter and there's like 100 people telling you off for not liking the most recent film or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And the way I've seen it is well, I've seen it a lot on other YouTube channels, mainly like commentary channels, which sometimes act as like they're reviewing stuff or they're critiquing stuff, but they have this defense of saying like, oh, we're part of the audience, so they're very quick to like call out reviewers or critics when they don't have the same opinion as they do. And that's like my and like just calling them out for having a different opinion, which I find very strange. And I haven't really had any conversation with anyone about it other than like in YouTube comments. That's mainly why I wanted to make this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people, that is the thing. They're mostly calling you out for disagreeing with them. And they often say stuff like, you've been rude about the filmmakers, which I don't think I am, really. I try to be nice to filmmakers because I know how difficult it is to make films. And I respect that even with the worst films, most of the time people are trying quite a lot behind the scenes. So it's not like it's their fault. Well, it is their fault, but it's not like they intended for it to be bad.
No.
That's not always the case. Some films seem to have been made terribly on purpose. But yeah, I often get people saying like, oh, how dare you be mean to James Wan, multi-million-dollar producing and directing kind of entity, making films for one of the biggest entertainment agencies in the world. Which I always find a little bit confusing, to be honest. I don't know exactly why people feel like they have so much skin in the game around that.
Yeah, I mean, and I got to say, like, I'm probably a bigger fan of James Wan than you are, but I can definitely see where critique is due when it comes to his stuff. But like recently, I made a video about wasn't recently, a few months ago. I made a video about Godzilla King of the Monsters, and sure, I did the same clickbaity thing. I called it the worst movie of 2019. It probably isn't now, but it definitely was then, back then for me.
Oh, what's Pip the Post?
Oh God, I enjoy Godzilla movies, but I don't enjoy the Godzilla movies where it's just two monsters fighting each other.
But that's almost all of them.
Yeah, I know, and that's the problem. I keep
Yeah.
wanting to see the original over and over again. I love the original.
What, 1950s Godzilla?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And how do you feel about 2000s? 1997 Roland Emmerich Godzilla.
It has 98.
Okay.
It has a lot of problems, but the core premise of the movie I actually enjoy much more than the newer movies or even the older ones where they just fight each other.
But that's so interesting because so it's interesting that you say that because sorry, just for you to finish your point. So did your comments not agree?
Oh yeah. I got more dislikes than likes on that one. Which I understand. It was a fan favorite. People, fans of Godzilla loved it because it was like the old Godzilla movies,
but in English or in American.
Yeah. So people just said that I was wrong, and I was like, how can I be wrong? It's an opinion about a movie. It's so weird. I mean, and it happened before, but that one's the latest one.
And it's interesting with that though, because it's like, I think critics can be wrong. Like I think some critics can be.
Yeah.
What you've just said there sounds like a difference in opinion. Like you wanted something from a Godzilla movie, and that movie wasn't it. And it didn't satisfy that, so you gave it a bad review, which is as good a justification as any, really.
Yeah.
And the flip side is true for me, where that was exactly what I wanted. It's funny because I think a lot more critics agreed with you on that one. I read a lot of critical reviews that were saying, this isn't very good. And I remember one in particular that was like, the problem is there's no characters in the movie. It's not really compelling in a character way, which I don't agree with, but I can definitely see where they're coming from. The characters are not the most important thing in the film.
Oh, no.
They were saying, the problem is it's all just monsters hitting each other. And I was sat there like, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I came here for. I came to see Mothra. I came to see Ghidorah. I came to see Rodan. I came to see Godzilla attack them with his atomic fire breath, Yeah. That's what I wanted from the movie. And yeah, that's interesting because for once I was kind of on the other side of that. The flip side is true with like Endgame and Infinity War. I gave them more positive reviews than I give most Marvel movies, but they're pretty lukewarm for me. And I saw a lot of people in otherwise quite good papers in the UK giving good reviews. And it just seemed to me like they were pandering a little bit. They were saying like, oh, this is the one popular movie a year that I'm going to give a nice review to.
Well, yeah, and I'm not a big fan of the Marvel movies, but even I had to admit that Infinity War was actually a pretty good movie.
Which one's the first one again? That's Infinity War.
That's
right?
Infinity War, right? Yeah. I never saw Endgame.
Endgame's fine, but Infinity War actually was like, I was like, oh, this is clever. There's some interesting stuff in this.
That's what I heard as well. Yeah, and I actually really enjoyed it. I mean, probably more going off on a little tangent here. Probably more because they actually managed to make a movie with that many characters in it, and everyone having like their moment to shine. Basically, no character felt neglected.
It had like a really rich villain, which a lot of the Marvel films in particular don't have. Weirdly, I think the opposite is true of like Batman movies, where most of the Batman movies are only as good as the villains are, and Batman himself often comes across as kind of boring.
That's true.
But the opposite is true with the Marvel films, where they often have interesting central characters. Well, sometimes, and the villains are almost interchangeable. Like you have Ronan and Malkeith, from Guardians and from 4-2. That they look the same, they act the same, they have the same motivations by and large. They even have the same kind of ship and use it in the same way in the finale of the film. So it's just like, these are so interchangeable, they have nothing in them. And then Josh Brolin comes along with this kind of like cleverly conceived, kind of pathetic performance. And then they just ruined it in the second film. So there you go. But it was an interesting thing.
But I also, I think like often with going back to Godzilla or going back to having differences of opinion with fans or the audience, because a lot of people or some people were saying that the fans actually really like this movie and people like the box office would show that, but Godzilla didn't really do that well in the box office. I mean, it made like $400 million. That's a lot of money, but not for a movie that cost almost $200 million.
Red Letter Media called it like a flopbuster, right? I think that's a term where it's like a movie that's really big, but actually, it makes back its money, but not in a huge way.
Yeah, that's about it. I don't think they made a lot of profit on that one. Like, a few million, just a few million. But I mean, we're
But
talking
the weird thing
that
about
quantity.
those kind of movies, like quite often the audience perception is they didn't make enough money. Like with Justice League was kind of viewed as having failed.
Yeah.
But actually through product placement and through its box office returns, Justice League made way enough money. Like it wasn't an issue for the movie. It didn't, it didn't redefine what it is to make money like
No.
two Avengers movies have now, but it made by far enough money to justify a sequel. Same with Suicide Squad.
Yeah, people call that a flop. I don't like it at all. But yeah, it's getting a sequel, and it made like hundreds of millions of dollars.
It was one of the best movie films of the year, actually. I think.
Oh, really? Damn.
Yeah. In my box office, anyway.
Oh, okay.
2016. 2016.
Yeah. I remember watching that. I watched that on the midnight premiere here in Sweden. I was so delirious. We were actually like kind of praising it on the way home, and then having a few hours of sleep, and waking up and thinking, "Ooh, that movie was terrible. Why did I say I like it?"
Oh, it's one of those interesting movies where it has. Oh no, it was like 32nd. It made 11 million in the UK. I mean, it's not terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a great movie. I think there's some stuff to be interested in that film, but it's definitely not the film that the filmmakers intended to make.
No.
So yeah.
But yes, going back to Godzilla, like not even like people in general didn't enjoy the movie. If you're just looking at stats, I even broke it down like by stats in some comment on that video. I got a little nitpicky. Like it opened in out of those 3 movies that have been made for the MonsterVerse or whatever they're calling it, the first Godzilla and then Kong and then this Godzilla movie. It opened in the most theaters worldwide. It had like the second biggest budget, but it didn't make. It's the least profitable of the 3, and it dropped. The audience dropped off. The audience drop off was the biggest and fastest on that movie. So it wasn't a popular movie. Like it was for fans.
Critics mostly agreed with that, right?
Yes, exactly. And I was trying to point out
your viewers.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, even then, if you wanted to like say who was right and wrong, I don't want to be an asshole, but I kind of was wrong because most people didn't like it. I kind of was right. I mean, so yeah, but fans will always defend the movies they like, which they should, of course. If they like a movie, that's great. And I usually say that when I'm being a little more scathing towards the movie, I usually say that to anyone that liked the movie, I'm glad you did. I wish I could enjoy it as much as you do, but I just didn't. But people don't seem to understand that.
I go into a film wanting it to be good. I generally don't want to waste my time. I do frequently find my time wasted, but I don't want that to be the case.
Yeah, I do. I can't remember now, but I do watch some movies because I know they're going to be bad. That happens. Not as often in cinemas, but like at home, I definitely watch movies because I know they're going to be bad.
And I also watch movies that I know don't have any value, just like stupid movies at home, just for fun. Sometimes I'll save a movie deliberately. Like if you're taking a plane flight, if you're flying somewhere and you really want to watch something on the plane, you have to keep in reserve some movies that you haven't watched that came out in the last couple of years. So I'll often keep kind of something terrible for that. And so you had this disconnection with your audience. What do you think is behind that? And maybe not in your case specifically, but in general, why do you think audiences and critics disagree? Because it's a really wide topic, and as we've spoken about, it's happened a lot, and it happens in both ways. You have movies that, like The Thing by John Carpenter, which is like a classic, I think, a fantastic film, but it was widely panned by critics and by audiences when it came out. And likewise, The Wizard of Oz, The Sound of Music, these classic movies. Yeah, The Wizard of Oz was quite badly received when it came out. But also,
I didn't know that.
One of the reasons why The Wizard of Oz is so big now is because it was bought cheaply by an American. So it didn't make profit when it was released. Critics liked it, but audiences didn't really watch it. It was very expensive to make. And then it came out on TV on CBS in 1956, and it was basically played by them on repeat almost every year. And that was what built its. People started to love it because they saw it so often. I don't know what happened with The Thing. I mean, The Thing is so weird to me because
Yeah.
it's hard to say exactly why people didn't like that. It's so good, it seems.
Yeah, but I think those are like those must be like outliers because both those movies are like revered now, and rightly so. Because if like objectively they are good movies, both of them, for different reasons, of course. But
Yes, they're
like
quite different.
they're quite different, yes.
Yeah.
But like instinctively, I mean, I love The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, and I don't know how many times I watched it, but like even like the first time I watched it, I don't know, I was like maybe 11 or 12 when I saw it the first time. I just loved it, and even now that I've become more critical and watching movies with a more critical eye, I still love almost every aspect of it.
I mean, I watch it maybe once a year, and I've seen it in the cinema 3 or 4 times. You know, it's very. I think it's very good, and yet audiences and critics kind of agreed it wasn't good at the time.
I know that's so weird.
And I wonder how often it goes the other way, where critics give really good reviews to films, and then they're later on forgotten. Because I think that happens a lot. I think that happens a lot with Oscar movies, for instance.
Yes.
A lot of them kind of go nowhere. You can have a film nominated for Best Picture, and then no one thinks about it in 10 years, like Crash, for instance.
Oh, yeah, the Crash.
Film about racism that is just terrible.
Yeah.
And yet it won Best Picture, and no one talks about it now because it's so embarrassing to think about.
Yeah, like my go-to is always The Artist. Like, nobody talks about The Artist anymore. It's a good movie, but...
There's a weird one with that because it's like, if you look at every other film made by those guys, they're all really good. Like, all of their films are really good, and The Artist is good. But The Artist is totally different to the rest of their movies, and I don't know why that's the one. I think it's because it appeals to Hollywood in a very specific way.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason why it's popular. But yeah, you're right. That's a really good example. Avatar is the one I always think of, which got like 5-star reviews from everyone when it came out.
Yeah.
And it's like terrible. It's a really bad movie. And I think people are only just starting to admit that now. You know, like a decade later, people are starting to come out of their caves like, I shouldn't have given that 5 stars. You know?
Yeah, I remember. The first time I saw it, I absolutely loved it. But then I bought it on Blu-ray, watched it again, and was like, yeah, this is still pretty good. Watched it a third time a few months later, and was like, I don't like this anymore. So I just stopped watching it because I didn't want to ruin that memory because I really loved it the first time.
Yeah, it's bereft of value. I think there's very little new or interesting work in that. And that just makes it kind of boring, I think, would be the way I would describe it more than anything else. Like, it's just hasn't got anything new or interesting in it, I don't think.
No, it was a spectacle, and that's why people were wowed by it. Like, it was a technical marvel, but that it doesn't hold up any longer. It didn't have anything else. Someone said like, what was it? Pretty pictures plus lame story equals pretty lame, and that's what it is. It's pretty lame.
Yeah. It's also like the best bits of several other better things stuck together. And it has a really bad structure. It feels like 3 movies that's been crammed into one.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one where it was the other way around, and critics, I think, were wrong. But audiences were wrong too on that. Audiences and critics agreed on that film.
Yeah. But I think
it's just terrible.
I think the movie that I think divided people the most now recently and is still being brought up is, of course, Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and that's probably where I still hear people talking about it like, oh, the critics were wrong, and
where do you stand on that, out of interest?
I don't think it's the worst movie ever. I definitely don't like it. I have a lot of issues with it. But
for me, like that's one where it's like almost the issue that critics have over normal film watchers is that you're more interested in an interesting movie than you are in the film being good sometimes. And that movie is super interesting. I think they do a lot of really clever and interesting stuff in the film. I don't think it hangs together very well.
No.
There's lots of odd structural stuff, and there's also lots of stuff that doesn't really make any sense if you pay attention to it. But the 3 or 4 things it does that are clever, in particular, that what happens in the last third of the movie with Kylo Ren is surprising. And I was sat there like, oh, okay, that's really interesting that you've done that, which I think is something very rare in a movie of that size.
Yeah, but I think a movie like that, from an audience perspective, it didn't have to experiment so much with the formula. It just needed to be another Star Wars movie. So I can see why like not diehard fans, because diehard fans, most of them are still saying it's good, but like moderate fans didn't enjoy it as much. Because
which is weird to me. I mean, I think that's partially because people want that kind of like soft, like warm bath kind of thing.
oh yeah, definitely.
They want it to be easily watchable.
Yeah, yeah. But because people were so up in arms about it, not liking it, and it became this like political issue around it. Like, and I think that's where people started mistrusting critics. Not started, but that was the big thing that I noticed. Like, people thought that like critics were like pushing an agenda by liking the movie because of all the because of all the feminism talk around it, and a lot of the press for it before it was released. So people were like predisposed to not like it because they didn't agree with the politics of the people involved in making the movie.
Which is silly.
Yeah, because it's a movie. We should judge the movie based upon what's in the movie.
Yeah, and also like there's been plenty of female leads across the Star Wars films. So it's a bit of a strange choice to make. Also, did you know that some of that stuff was whipped up by the Russians? You know, the Russian troll bots.
Oh,
some
sure,
of them tweeted
yeah.
about that, which is really interesting. They were just trying to like start fights in American fan communities.
Well, they do that all the time. They just want to. Yeah, they just want to rile people up.
Stuff up.
Yeah.
But it worked. I mean, you know, people were really angry about it. I remember reading an article that was kind of nuts, but maybe had some truth to it, about the secret vegetarian agenda of Rian Johnson, which is like, there's some stuff in the film that is kind of like anti-meat eating, basically, is the claim of the article. Because they like make fun of Chewie decides not to eat that bird thing.
Oh, sure.
And there's like him milking that weird animal, and she freaks out, and he's like, "What? You never seen something get milked before?" And it's like, talking. It's like a vegan perspective, I suppose.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're kind of grasping.
I think so. Yeah, I think that. I mean, Rian Johnson, I seem to remember saying like, "Yeah, this is a really vegetarian movie," but I think he was probably joking.
Yeah, but then those kind of comments just makes the angry people even angrier. So, and that like furthers the divide, I think. Like how they handled the situation after that movie, it didn't help the situation at all. They kept doubling down on like, no, if you dislike the movie, you're a troll or you're a racist or you're a sexist. That does also
sell movies, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Think about how many little girls got a Rey costume for Christmas because their parents wanted to defend that movie.
Yeah, that's true.
And Disney is good at that stuff. They did the same thing with Captain Marvel.
Oh yeah.
They marketed it as a very feminist film, and it's got a female lead, it's got a strong female cast, but the film itself really isn't interested in being a feminist movie. I don't think it doesn't tell that feminist story, and yet they kind of pushed it very hard. They even released it on International Women's Day, because I think it's a pretty bad movie, and they needed a way to sell it.
Yeah. But that like. I think that's the wrong way to do it. I mean, yeah, if there's no other way to do it, you gotta find some angle, but
depends what you mean by wrong, right? Wrong for who?
Oh,
for
sure.
For critics, for them it worked. It made a lot of money, but
that's what's so tricky. Like, it made a lot of money, but it feels like a lot of people like watched it out of spite.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't.
I don't feel like it's the kind of movie that people will be like raring to show their kids in 20 years.
No.
Like, oh yeah, that was really influential on me growing up.
No, it'll only be remembered for the media hype. No one's gonna remember the movie.
Media hype.
Yeah, exactly. So
what do you think that disconnect with critics is? Why do you think audience members don't agree with it? I think we should split up too, because the thing of like people coming to comment and being really angry at you for not liking a Marvel film or something.
Yeah,
I think that's a slightly different thing to critics not agreeing with audiences. So one of the biggest ones in the UK. Did you see The Greatest Showman?
No, I skipped that one.
There's P.T. Barnum musical. Pretty bad movie. Audiences loved it, and it did incredibly well on its cinema run in the UK. It was in the cinema for 12 weeks, something like that. So this huge run, and they actually brought it back several times in the biggest cinema chain in the UK because it was so popular. And yet, everyone gave it a bad review. I saw the film about 2 months after it came out, and I didn't like it. There's some stuff that's good in it, but most of the film isn't good. And I came away from it feeling a bit conflicted, because it's really nice to go into a cinema for once and it be full, which happens very rarely now. And it was full, and it was full of women and children, which are the rarest audiences to see in a cinema.
Yeah.
But it's still not good. So, what am I to say about the film? I think for me, that stuff happens because we watch more films than general audiences.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, a film just being fun isn't really enough to make me want to give it a good review.
No.
Like, I have plenty of fun in my own life. I've been playing Stardew Valley recently.
Okay.
And I'm 72 hours into Stardew Valley and I love it. But I'm not going to go and make a critical article or video saying everyone should go and play Stardew Valley because I'm enjoying it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think it's the same kind of thing. I think fun is not enough to justify it, essentially.
No, definitely not.
But if you're only watching like 6 films a year, and one of them is this really fun thing that you can go and see with your kids or your grandkids or with your mom or grandma, then yeah, that's probably going to get a good review.
That's true. Yeah, yeah, and I think that is the fundamental difference. Fundamental difference is that we watch movies in a different way. Like I mentioned, I watch movies even when I just watch them for fun. I do tend to watch it with a more critical eye, like thinking of editing. You can't
turn it off after a while, can you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the big difference, because I've actually had a kind of a discussion about this with my parents. We were driving down to my grandparents, which it's like a 6-7 hour car ride, so we had some time to kill. So we discussed A Star Is Born, which came out last year, right? Yeah. With that version. And I wasn't a huge fan of it. I thought it had a lot of problems. I don't know. Have you seen it?
No.
Oh, okay.
I probably won't ever see it. I've seen the previous 2 versions, so I feel like I'm pretty familiar with the stuff.
Oh, okay.
I really want to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, my parents, they really, really loved it. They thought it was a great movie. And I was like, but what was good about it? Like, the story, because it's very emotional. There's a lot of emotions swelling, a lot of emotional scenes, crying and being happy and stuff. And then, of course, music, which really, helps the emotional stuff. So it really tugged on your heartstrings. And all that stuff really works. But what I had a problem with was directing, which I guess was Bradley Cooper's first time directing, which really showed. It felt like a film student directing it, like his first time directing a feature-length thing. You pick on those things when you've seen a bunch of movies like that, or like structure and editing. Like, all the musical numbers were great, and some of the songs are really good and catchy, but the actual movie was kind of hard. This was a hard pill to swallow, because it was like grinding, so I couldn't really enjoy all the emotions that were welling up, and for that I couldn't really enjoy the movie. But they didn't notice those things. They just saw the laughing and the crying parts, and I think that's a big difference. Like, they play more on the emotions of the audience.
Yeah.
It's more detached when you watch it with a critical eye.
Yeah, I definitely think there's some of that. And it's weird, because I feel that audiences do pick up on that subconscious stuff, but it is subconscious. And like you say, when the emotion's right, they can kind of dismiss that stuff a bit easier. And on the flip side of that, I think critics often give good reviews to bad movies because they do something clever, because there's something technically interesting about the film.
Oh yeah, I do that.
Which is the opposite problem, right? You're like, wow, that was a really interesting camera move, or it's some clever structure. I'm gonna like think about the film in a better light, which it often doesn't deserve, But yeah, I think that is a huge thing, and it's interesting that you bring up A Star Is Born, because it seems to be musicals. Like, musicals seem to be a big problem. One of the things with The Greatest Showman, people were saying, it's fun, and it's kind of like these old Hollywood movies, these old MGM musicals. I don't know how familiar you are with those musicals. Like,
not a lot. I'm not a big musical fan, so I've seen a few. And I like even less.
I'm a huge musical fan, but I have seen like 10, 15 of those movies.
Oh, okay.
They made a huge amount of them.
Yeah.
But the thing is about those movies is that actually me knowing more about those films made me like the film less, because I was judging it against those, and most of them are really good. So I was watching it going, well, actually, no, this isn't like that. It's pretending to be like that. And I can see why you think it's like that, but it isn't. They're not the same. And there's probably one musical number in the film that's as good. as anything in the MGM films.
Yeah.
So that's a weird thing where it almost feels like, yeah, like the whole idea of being a critic, where you're someone who has devoted time and study to the genre or to the films, makes you a less good receiver of that film because you're kind of judging it against other stuff.
Yeah. That's really tricky then to like, because when I review a movie, of course I want to, if I really like a movie, I want to not sell it, but I want to encourage people to go and see it. But yeah, I say that, oh, it has very interesting structure, or the characters are very like intricately written. Those are not the things that would entice people to go and see it. So but it's the actual things that makes the movie interesting, or at least to me, you know. So it's very
tough.
hard. Yeah, it's tough to like know what you're supposed to, or it's tough to find a balance between actually talking about why the movie is good and why you should go see it.
Well, then that's the central business of reviewing, right? I think audiences sometimes think a review is supposed to be a straight, don't go see this movie, do go see this. But for me, I find sometimes that I'd rather leave that decision up to someone on the other end of the review. And instead, what I'm interested in doing is communicating to people what I thought was good in the film. Or, you know, what I thought didn't work. And then really the actual final decision is up to them. Because like you were saying, you know, someone could say to me, this Godzilla movie is terrible. It has no good characters in it. All it is giant fighting monsters. I hear that. And to me, I'm like, yeah, that's what I want. That's exactly it for me.
Yeah.
But my mum is probably sitting there going like, no, I don't want to see that film. You know, I'm really not interested in watching giant monsters fight each other. So yeah, I feel like, and I don't know how you feel about this, but one of the issues with internet criticism in particular, with comments and stuff like that, is that all my commenters seem to be people who've either happy that I've chosen the side they think I've chosen, or unhappy that I've chosen a side that isn't theirs. So I got a review the other day. I got a comment on my Aquaman review, right? So I didn't like this Aquaman movie, and it's a DC movie. And a lot of my followers, about 200 of them, joined off that video about why I didn't like that Marvel film.
Oh, okay.
So all these people started commenting, being like, Will, DC, you don't like this DC movie? Now you're a Marvel shill like everyone else.
Yeah.
And what I can't understand, for me, because that's never really been the way I've approached film, is why these people think that that all of what I like and dislike about these films comes down to a simple and kind of like team-led choice. I've chosen this team, I don't like your team. And there are sometimes that is a thing, but sometimes I make a decision against that. To be honest, if I ever make a team-based decision like that, it's usually to not see a film. So I haven't seen the new Tarantino film, as we spoke about. I don't really like Tarantino movies. I don't think his 10th movie is going to change my mind.
No.
Reading the reviews of it, I probably will see it at some point. Like I saw Django about 3 years after it came out, but I feel like I've seen enough of his work to think, okay, it doesn't sound like it's going to have changed significantly. I'm not interested in seeing it.
No. I mean, if you like Tarantino films, you're gonna like that one. If you don't like Tarantino films, you're not gonna like it, because it's quintessentially a Tarantino film. It's the most Tarantino film of all.
What I'm saying is, I suppose, is that I wouldn't then do a review of that film and be like, boo, it's a Tarantino film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't. I'm not like a team-based reviewer like some people seem to be.
Yeah, but are you like not reviewing it because you are slightly biased, so you don't want to give a biased opinion, or?
I don't feel like I have 3 hours to spare on a film I'm pretty sure I won't like, basically, is the main opinion. It's kind of like an economical decision on my part.
All right, makes sense.
So I had a free day the other day to go and see movies, and instead of seeing one 3-hour looking film, I went to go see Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and The Current War, both of which had middling to bad reviews, but I was interested to see what they were like. And there, at least, I didn't know they were going to be bad. I didn't know they were going to be movies I didn't like, because I feel like I'm pretty sure about that with Tarantino.
I just quickly got to ask you about The Current War, because I saw the trailer for that, and I mean, there were real actors in it, but it looked like a joke. Not like in a bad way, but it didn't look like a real movie. How was it? Just
the trailer's really bad.
The
movie is significantly better than the trailer.
Okay.
It's weird. I mean, I haven't done my review of it yet. I'm sure if I will, I might leave it to the end of the year, because I do a roundup video usually at the end of the year, but I feel like I might do a category which is like films I'm not sure about yet.
Okay.
It's a 3 out of 5. but it's a good example of why I don't rate films by like 3 out of 5 or whatever. The problem is that a lot of 3 out of 5s are films that have really aimed for something average and have kind of gotten there. And The Current War is a film that's trying to do something really incredible and really interesting, and mostly it doesn't do it.
Yeah.
It fails, but two things in the film are really good, which is the music and the cinematography. The editing of the film, I think, is also really interesting. So yeah, it tries and fails to tell a story that's got really compelling themes and really interesting characters in it. But it has a really good lead performance from Michael Shannon. It's got really interesting cinematography, and the music is very good. So it's not a film I would like to tell people not to go see. I think it's a film people should make their own minds up about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that segues into what I was gonna mention before. Like, I also try to stay away from telling people not to go see a movie, even if I don't like it. Like I said before, I often say I wish I could like it more, and I'm glad other people like it. In rare cases, I say don't go watch it. I did that with Godzilla, but I was just so disappointed in that movie. Even
Sometimes I do just say, nah, bad movie. Don't go see it. Bad movie.
Yeah. But that was mostly hyperbole, like, because I was so disappointed in it. So, but other than that, yeah, I don't set out to tell people what to think of the movie. I just tell people what I think of it, and hope that my my opinion can help them decide whether or not to go see it.
Yeah. And I think,
that's what I'm
really
for.
overstating our own abilities. Viewers think that we genuinely convince people.
I know.
To just go and see other movies, if that makes any sense. I feel like most people watch my reviews already knowing how they feel about the film.
Yeah.
And so instead, I'm just trying to have a conversation with them about it. So some of my favorite reviewers, I'll read even if I know they've given a bad review to a film I like. So like Red Letter Media, I always think are really good at it. And several of their videos I've watched and fundamentally disagree with. They did that famous video about why Star Trek First Contact is one of the worst Star Trek movies.
Yeah.
And I love it. I think it's a great movie.
Okay.
But their reasoning around it is really interesting. And although I don't agree with it, it really illuminates to me another perspective on the film. And I think that's okay. Roger Ebert is another critic who does that really well. There's several Roger Ebert reviews that I think are very well written and very well argued that I don't agree with at all. But I always like his writing, and I think he's a clever writer who I kind of pay attention to. He makes brave choices as a reviewer. I know that your head is currently superimposed on him, so it's a bit of a weird for us to have a conversation about him like this.
Yeah. And that's also a thing, like how I watch movie reviews. Like I do watch them from time to time, or usually to like help me decide whether or not to watch a movie, because there's the people whose opinion I trust, basically, or maybe not trust, but I value their opinion. Yes, Red Letter Media is a big one, although they have burned me a couple of times with movies they said, oh, this is really good. Like, okay, I'll go get that.
Give me an example. I'm really interested in that. Was it a review series or?
No. Like the worst one was way back in 2012 or 11 or whatever. They made a review for Cowboys and Aliens, or Cowboys versus Aliens, the Daniel Craig movie. They really enjoyed it for the matinee western kind of feeling. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh,
and they
sucks.
Yeah, they equated it to The Rocketeer, which I do like. I mean, I'm not a huge fan, but I like it.
I like Rocketeer a lot, so that's interesting. I can see where they're coming from, and yet I really disagree with.
Yeah, so I bought that movie. Like, on that day, I bought it for like $10 or something. 9 pounds.
If I'd paid actual money to watch Cowboys vs. Aliens, I'd be really upset. I watched it on Netflix like last year.
Yeah, so I watched it.
Often, and, I'll never tell someone to not watch a film, but I will sometimes tell them not to buy it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's a little bit of a difference there. I'll say, like, wait till it's on Netflix or TV, or wait until you're on a plane. But don't whatever you do, don't literally physically cross that boundary of handing over money for this product.
Yeah, because that movie made me like angry. It's
really boring. It's much more boring than it has any right to be.
Yes.
It's such a fun idea, and it just is very dull.
They don't utilize the premise of the movie at all. It's terrible. But I do enjoy like 90% of their stuff, the stuff they make. They're a big inspiration for how I review
noticed that you not
movies.
only have a wall of Blu-rays, but you also have the Red Letter Media music on your channel, on
Yeah,
your
yeah.
channel trailer. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can't help it. I mean, yeah, it's
And I think,
sometimes too much, but yeah, I really
I
like
think
them.
there are lots of hack reviewers on YouTube, and I think
Mm,
YouTube in general has pretty bad film criticism. I mean,
yeah,
there's lots of good critics writing on Twitter and on Letterboxd, and often they're people who write for proper publications as well.
yeah.
But generally speaking, I'm really disappointed by almost every review I watch on YouTube. And I think in particular, the two leading lights of YouTube film reviews, which are Jeremy Jahns and Chris Stuckman, are really bad film reviewers. I
Mm,
think Chris Stuckman in particular, I think Jahns is often interesting, and he does seem to genuinely pay attention to the films. Chris Stuckman, I remember giving it like a B plus to like the Ghost in the Shell live action film, which was just absurd to me. I was like, what? That's indefensible. There's absolutely nothing to give that film. I can't give anything to that movie. Um, and to me, like he's just emblematic of that problem with which I was talking about earlier, where it's like you pick a team. He often seems to decide my movie is this movie is going to be something that's popular with my review watchers, so I'm going to give it a good review. And
yeah,
I think that's just like reverse engineering your opinion. It's a really bad way of approaching criticism.
yeah. That's definitely like I watch him and I don't know what to think of him. I do like him as a person, but I think yeah, his reviews are a little vapid, a little empty. Usually, there are some good ones, but
I can see why he's popular in terms
yes,
of like he's a good presenter, and I think that's
hmm
like a lot of film reviewers on YouTube are bad at. But I've never really watched a review of his and thought, yes, that's good. I
no,
agree
no,
with your
yeah.
take. Even movies that I like that he likes, I tend to think that he's wrong for the reasons why he likes them. Do you know what I
Okay,
mean?
okay, yeah, but I think he kind of caters to his audience and like
Yeah, big
picks
time.
movies he thinks the general audience is going to enjoy. Um, which yeah, it's not. I don't know if there is a if there is a right way or a wrong way to review a movie or critique a movie. Yeah, he's doing it the wrong way.
Mm.
But it's clearly working. Like yeah, like the way Disney promotes some of their movies, it's wrong, but like you said, it's working, and that's why he has over 1 million subscribers and usually gets like hundreds of thousands of views. So I mean,
Basically, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, and also they both do trailer reviews. Hate with a passion.
yeah,
I hate this idea that trailers are worth reviewing. They are marketing products. It's like me doing a weekly show where I review commercials that are on TV.
yeah.
I mean, maybe that's a good idea. I don't know. Maybe people
It
would like that. But
it is like I've started doing them because they
trailer
bring
reviews.
trailer reactions, like what I
Yeah.
thought. Yeah, trailer reviews, because they bring
Did you
in
you saw my video
so much
about
views.
the Endgame review, the Endgame trailer? I did a trailer reaction video for it.
I don't remember if I watched that. I kind of stayed away from Endgame stuff because I didn't care. I didn't care.
Well, basically, I was making fun of it. A lot of those ones are so over the top and fake,
Oh yeah, sure,
and
sure.
they don't really discuss anything of interest. They're like, "Wow, that looks cool. I can't wait to see
Yeah.
that." And it's like, I don't understand what the point of this content is. So I did this review where I turn it on and then watch it silently for several minutes, and then it finishes, and I go, "Wow, guys, that looks great," and then go into the thing. So I was just kind of trying to deconstruct that awful marketing
Yes.
machine thing that YouTube often ends up being.
Yeah.
There are some good film reviewers. I really like Lindsay Ellis. Do you like Lindsay Ellis?
I watch her from time to time.
I think she's very clever, and
Oh
in the
yeah,
way that she talks about work, she thinks about it. You can tell that she's having a fucking conversation with the audience about the
definitely.
stuff.
Yeah. Her
And
like her writing is
also,
on a different level than most
yeah,
people.
all of her stuff about Transformers, it's like really clever
Yeah.
and well thought through, and yet about something really dumb. I like that about
Yeah.
her.
I don't think I
And there's
watched all
also
those, but there was like 7 videos or something. I watched a few
yeah,
of
it's
them.
really
Yeah.
long. There's also someone whose name totally escapes me. Obviously, I watch the essay people, although to be honest, a lot of
Mm.
those also they tend to be more like here's a pretty film than interesting insight. Ralph the Movie Maker, I think, is a very good on YouTube. Do you ever watch him?
Oh, sure, sure. I used to
Yeah.
watch him more before. I don't watch him as much.
Mm.
He doesn't do as much stuff anymore.
Yeah, I actually fund him on Patreon because I think his content is good, even though I don't watch all of it. I think it's like the kind of stuff people should talk about.
Yeah.
And although this lady mostly does TV and games, but a woman called Pushing Up Roses.
Yeah, I've
and
seen
I think
some
she's
of her
good.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
She
But
does
all of
book
those people,
reviews also.
yeah, she does
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff. She started on like murder mystery as a thing across platforms, which I think is cool. But all of those people seem to be trying to have a conversation with the audience, which I think is a really important thing. Whereas John's is, you know, that pose he does in every thumbnail where he's,
Yeah.
wow, that's a movie. And it's
Yeah.
like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, you're just making these movies about Disney stuff. I don't think there's anything to it.
Yeah, I used to hate Jeremy Jahns, but then I watched some of his stuff, and he has the same problem as Chris Stuckman. Like his reviews, they don't really say much more than, oh, the movie was good. But they don't go into detail. It's just that, oh, it was good.
Wow, this thing
like
was really
this.
cool.
Yeah.
Did you see that cool thing?
Yeah.
It's
But
not much to it.
then sometimes he does slightly longer videos where he doesn't talk about one movie in particular. It's like something that's been in the news or just something he wants to talk about. And I definitely enjoy those videos more because he seems to have an opinion. I don't always agree, but at least, you know, he gets his opinion across a little more than in his movie reviews. So I do like those.
I think that's the weird thing about him is that I think, certainly more so than Chris Stuckman, he has the ability to do stuff, actively deciding not to.
Yeah.
Which is kind of depressing, really, more than anything else. Which is a shame. Yeah, he does have some intelligence. Wow, I'm really going in on Chris Stuckman. I've never really found anything he's done that defensible, to be honest, would be the way I would put it.
Oh, okay. No, I wouldn't defend him. But I do watch him from time to time, and I do respect or admire or respect the fact that they've managed to make a career out of something they enjoy doing, even though they're not the best at it. So I do kind of like that aspect of it. I just wish they were better at it. If that makes any sense.
Question for you, because it's the last kind of thing we haven't spoken, but it's something that you talked about kind of in the description of this video. You say it's considered to be bad to be a professional critic, but neither you nor me are really professional critics,
no, I know.
Right? In some way. I think we're relatively professional in the sense that we do film and make notes and stuff like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, well, I'm thinking more like professional as in having it as a profession. Because I don't really I make like $20 a month off of Patreon, so I call myself a semi-professional as a joke.
I'm trying very hard, but
yeah,
I know what you mean. I just noticed we've got some comments in the YouTube stream.
Yeah,
someone coming through just asking if we've seen Capernaum.
I haven't.
That's
watched
the
that.
Wild Pear Tree. Have you seen that?
No.
Have you seen So Long, My Son?
No.
I haven't seen any of these movies.
No,
which
me
is really
neither.
bad. I've seen a couple of movies by the guy who did Wild Pear Tree, but I haven't seen. Capernaum just looks so sad. I just haven't.
Yeah, I saw
can't.
some
Do you know what I mean?
reviews
Like,
of it. Yeah.
It's too much for me. The other movie is Danish Swedish, Queen of Hearts, which sounds, oh God, kind of tough. It's not out here yet, so I haven't seen it, basically, is the long story short.
Queen of Hearts.
I don't think, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking through the comments now.
And Long Day's Journey into Night. I haven't seen Long Day's Journey, but I really want to. It has a 20-minute single take 3D sequence in the middle of the film, and nothing else in the film is 3D.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Long Day's Journey to Night. Oh, I haven't heard of it.
It's a Chinese movie, I think, but it's named after Eugene O'Neill play from the Irish American playwright.
Oh, okay.
It's a very strange thing.
I'm pretty
they
bad.
They played it at London Film Festival, but I didn't have a chance to go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like, the movies like these, yeah, they're kind of hard to be able to watch, like, unless you're watching in a film festival, and we don't have too many of those in Sweden. I usually try to watch some of those.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they don't stay in the cinemas for very long, and they're not in every... I've been really bad at this year for a number of reasons. I didn't go to cinema that much earlier this year, but most of the time when I see those movies,
Yeah.
and then that's kind of where I see them from. I am part of a number of mailing lists for like press, so I get invited to screenings, which is the benefit of living in London, where there's lots of PR going on.
Yeah.
But it can be quite difficult, especially with a foreign language film, non-English language, I should say.
Yeah.
Because English language movies can actually travel because a lot of people speak English, and it's a lot of people will sub an English movie, but movies like Chinese and Japanese movies don't tend to travel that well at all.
No.
I'm lucky. I've seen a number of Chinese movies. There's lots of really interesting films being made in China at the moment. But I've seen a number of those, but I've actually seen less recently. Where I grew up was quite a weirdly like diverse mix of boroughs near this one cinema. So this weird cinema would play it played Takeshi Kitano movies, and it played what's his name? Takashi Miike, and it played a number of Park Chan-wook films and also some Chinese films, which is really weird for a movie for cinema that mostly plays, Disney stuff like everyone else.
Yeah.
55 minutes long single take. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta keep a lookout for that one. Yeah.
I saw a film at London Film Festival that I really loved called Sako 1 and 2. It's a Japanese romance drama that's got a really weird central premise. But I came out of it thinking, cool, I will never see that film ever again because it will not sell in the UK. It will never get distribution here. I think it went out on Mubi in some markets. But
Okay.
That's it. So, yeah, and it's a shame. It was a really interesting movie, but no one see it.
That's that's kind of interesting then, because that's like a movie that no one in the general audience is gonna want to watch that, but it is a movie that a lot of people like us
I
enjoy.
I feel like actually it's almost a different issue, which is like plenty of audiences want to watch that, but they don't know necessarily they want to watch that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like it's hard to sell more than it's a movie that no one.
It's really hard to sell.
Yeah.
And even when you try to sell a movie like that, a lesser known movie, people don't watch like reviews or essays about those kind of movies. So it makes it even harder.
Make a choice about what you review sometimes.
Yeah.
The more popular movies. Do you know the film reviewer Mark Commode? He's an English film reviewer.
Yes, I enjoy
really
him.
Popular on Twitter and stuff. Yeah. And he. Sorry, I'm just writing this like Taiwanese movie while I'm talking to you. So he was really interesting because maybe it was even the year before at London Film Festival. He did a special thing where he kind of reviewed a load of movies that were about to come out that he saw at London.
Okay.
And he often has shorter and longer reviews on his show.
Yeah.
So he gave over a longer review slot, so about 10 minutes, to an African film called Felicite. That's absolutely phenomenal, but never got a proper release in the UK. Like it played extremely limited release in London, and that's it.
Yeah.
But the thing is he thought it was fucking great, and he thought that was worth looking at and talking about.
Yeah.
And what more can you say? I think that's a lovely bit of criticism from him. It's by a director called Alain Gomi, who's I think Senegalese, and the movie was really, really interesting. And he also he's a really well-known short filmmaker, and he's made a number of films. So I think Commode, who actually knows a fair amount of cinema scenes, was really trying to promote a film because it was good, not for any other reason. And interestingly, he's one of very few film reviewers in the UK who reviews Indian films, Hindi, Tamil, and Sri Lankan films, because he thinks that they sell a lot in the UK with a big Indian speaking, like Hindi and Tamil and various other languages speaking population in the UK.
Yeah.
And so those movies do show here quite a lot, but very few people review them. And I think that's great from him. Part of the reason is because the English audiences don't go see them. So most of his audience is English, so he thinks it's worth doing because they're good movies, even though most of his audience won't see them.
Yeah, and that's the way it should be. Like you should promote a movie if you think it's good, not because you think people will like it. I mean, if you think people like it, but if you want people to go and see a movie that they might not find out about otherwise, that's kind of that should be the goal of any critic, I think.
Yeah,
like to promote
that's the only
movies you like.
Yeah, it is what we want, right? I mean, it's maybe slightly easier for for your man Mark Commode because he has a slot on the BBC.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I think it is an important thing that people do. And I try to do it in my own work. I review films. I stream right now. And they're never going to be able to find them because they're really, really hard to get. There's like Criterion DVDs for 2 of them, and the rest of them are on VHS.
Yeah.
So unless you've seen them on film, actually, which I managed to for 2 or 3 of them recently in London, because London is a film city, which is great.
Yeah.
You're never going to see them, and that's really difficult unless you go into the deep, nasty, secret, illegal stuff that you can find on the internet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which we never do. But so it's this kind of complex thing sometimes with film where that's not available. One of the films I'm actually going to review at the end of this week, I'm filming the review tomorrow, film that I loved and I think has already come out in the US and is coming out in the UK on Friday. It's called The Souvenir by Joanna Hogg.
Oh yeah.
Played at Sundance. It has Tilda Swinton and her daughter in it, playing a mother and daughter. And it's produced by Martin Scorsese, or executive produced by him. But it's going to have a really small release. It had a small release in the US. I don't know when it's in Sweden.
I'm not even sure it's getting a release.
It might
here.
not. It's
the one that's gonna have it already has a sequel, or a sequel is coming out about it.
Yeah, she's already making the sequel.
Yeah.
She's a really interesting filmmaker. She's really, really clever. But most people never see her movies, because they have very small releases. I think this is their first big release, really.
Yeah, it's releasing in America, Germany, Australia, Canada, and Ukraine, and UK.
It'll probably come out. You'll probably be able to see it. I hope, but you should definitely see it. It's a very good movie.
Yes,
and so hopefully,
it looks
you'll
very
enjoy
interesting.
Regardless of what you make of the rest of them. Certainly, you could get hold of the rest of her films. They all came out on DVD. So, yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it's that it's that tough thing. It's not as hard as Xiao Xiaoxian, this Taiwanese filmmaker, where some of them have never even come out on DVD.
Then it becomes kind of hard.
Wild. Yeah. And the weirdest thing about that is that he's a Cannes-winning filmmaker. He won the Palme d'Or, I think, twice. But has been nominated several times. His films are really well known, popular.
Yeah,
but they've never had DVD releases.
But then, but then there's that thing like, it's popular among like critics and I guess like cinephiles or whatever you want to call it. But general audiences never hear about them. And if they for some reason happen to catch it, they probably won't enjoy it.
I don't know how you feel about this, but I sometimes find Oscar season, because I'm kind of forced to have conversations about films with people, because it's the main time of year, apart from the blockbusters, when people come and see good movies.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they're not the best movies a lot of the time. And also, they're basically like the films. They're like relatively mainstream films. For someone who spends their time watching independent and art house films, they come across quite mainstream a lot of them. And so I have kind of had to have this conversation with people where they say, "Oh, you haven't seen this? You've got to see this." And I have to kind of hold my tongue, like, you have no idea how many movies I've seen this year. Don't tell me what I haven't seen.
Yeah, that has happened a few times with me too. Yeah. But I'm not the best at finding like the more obscure movies either. Partly because
they're like you don't know what it is. You don't know that they exist sometimes.
Even. Yeah. Like my main, the main like outlet for that is the Stockholm Film Festival, and that's for like 11 days in November. You have these 11 days to watch as many of those kind of movies as possible, if they even show.
Are you going?
I don't.
You should apply for press.
I did. We talked about that a while back.
Yes, yeah. Did they let you in?
No, they didn't.
Oh no,
get
that's
back
unbelievable.
To me. Yeah, I know. I'll keep trying, but I did get. Yeah, I did get a mail back from an email back from some smaller festival, like a horror film festival or genre festival.
Which was that?
It's called Monsters of Film. It's a pretty small one in Sweden. Yeah. It's a pretty good one. They show a lot of. It's focused mostly on horror movies. But they focus a lot on like obscure movies you wouldn't see otherwise. Like a few years ago, they showed like the Eyes of My Mother and The Child Eater, which are great horror movies, but you're never gonna see them outside of that festival in Sweden at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, I applied for a press pass there. They
Yeah.
weren't able to do it then, but I'm gonna keep trying, of course.
How many subs have you got?
I'm at 539 now.
And have you
Um,
ever written for a publication outside of doing YouTube?
no.
I think it's weird with the film press thing. This is getting into such like getting to the reads of the conversation really, but there's a lot of stuff where like they're more likely to take you on if you've done instead of like YouTube because I think it's not
Mm.
viewed as being the same.
No, I know, I
The
know.
people that there's like several platforms that I've asked, can I get on your press list, to come to your screenings? And some of my films, some of my reviews, but it's been very difficult, and only a few of them have let me on it. London Film Festival actually does let me have a press pass, has done for the last 2 years, which is nice.
Yeah.
Press passes are really useful if you can get them. At London, there's a big press pass thing, and they basically have a whole cinema that's just for the press and industry.
Yeah.
So for 2 weeks before the festival starts, they just show 3 movies a day, and then it goes to 6 movies or 8 movies a day. I can't remember.
Ugh.
And so you can't see them all at once. You have to make
No.
choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I literally did see like I think 13, 14 movies last November or October it would have been as well. And yeah, it's weird. Like I chose some because I liked them, and they never came out in the UK, so I couldn't review them. There was no
Yeah.
point in me reviewing them. People couldn't go see them. And then the flip side of it is that some movies I didn't like ended up being very popular videos because the movies got big budgets to market themselves in the UK.
No. Yeah.
Curious thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I also I usually don't review those movies because they won't reach a mainstream audience. Like I did like early when I started making video reviews back in late 2016. I did review like I don't know. Did you watch Under the Shadow, the Iranian horror movie or thriller? I
Oh,
guess.
you know what? I have seen it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I
The
reviewed
kind of like
that.
Iranian ghost movie
Yeah,
type thing.
because I really liked it. So I wanted to like get people to watch it, but it never like showed in any of the bigger cinemas after the festival. So it was kind of a dead end.
That's so interesting because
Yeah.
that's quite a well-known film here because it's a British filmmaker.
Yeah.
So it came out, it did and it got BAFTA nominated, I think, too. So it kind
Yeah.
of had a big release. It's so interesting what those differences in markets are.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We've solved the problem, I think, of critics versus audiences. We've done it. It's over. Shit, I should cancel that video I'm doing.
I don't know. Have we?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
No,
Tough.
no. It's really tough.
But what do we say? Critics aren't supposed to be the final word, right?
Absolutely not. I mean, it's
So we should leave it to the audience a little bit.
of course.
Let
Yeah.
them decide.
Yeah, because you can't just watch a movie because I say it's good. That's not how it works. It's a very subjective thing, like it is with most art. Um, but like I said before, my goal is always to at least help you make the choice if you want to watch this movie or that movie. Um, and as a critic, then you kind of have to pick and choose what movies you do review. Because like I watch a movie that I really really love, but I know no one else will, or no one that watches my videos will. So I won't review that one maybe, or I'll mention it, but I won't review it because there's no point. So I try to pick somewhere in the middle, and that's like the best you can do. But I think people have to the audience have to understand that like critics aren't they aren't trying to tell you what movies to like and not to like. They're just trying to help you decide. And I for some reason audiences don't want to understand that at the moment, or most people don't at least. Of course, there's always
On YouTube.
on YouTube, mostly on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think YouTube, it's also, I think, partially because certainly all my audience is like men under 30, who I think are the people most likely to get into a fight and about some
me
shitty
too.
superhero film they decide they like. So, yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me. And weirdly, like outside of YouTube, I have quite nice conversations about film. I think people are relatively good at thinking about movies. Which is strange. But, what are you going to do? Nature of the beast.
Yeah. It's hard.
All I've tried to do is to encourage my commenters to have open and like thoughtful discussions in the comments.
Yeah.
And whenever they comment, I try to discuss thoughtfully with them. Even insults, I'll always give them a like and ask them why they said that thing. No one ever has the balls to reply most of the time.
Yeah, I try to do the same thing mostly.
There you go. Yeah, you gotta just like give them a positive kind of like go fuck yourself, I guess.
Yeah, or yeah, like try to start a conversation to get them to talk about the movie at least, because that's what we want to do. We want to talk about movies.
Yeah. I mean that's absolutely it. We want to have a conversation,
like we had now. It was pretty nice.
Yeah. Well, look, thanks for having me.
Oh, definitely. Well, thanks for joining me.
Not at all. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was, gotta say, I was a little nervous because I do admire you quite a bit. I really like your videos and your opinions.
So
yeah, I got it.
Really kind.
Got a fanboy a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Well,
thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. And yeah, thank you to everyone watching and everyone watching later in the archived version.
I should actually I should say my channel just to make sure.
Oh, definitely.
My channel is Indietrix Film Reviews. You can follow me for reviews of new current releases and also video essays looking back at older releases. I have some new content coming out that is slightly different, that looks at kind of questions around criticism and films in our wider sets. So come and see that if you're interested in finding out more about this kind of topic we're talking about now.
Yeah, and I'll make sure to link your stuff in the description.
Always good to hear.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this. It was fun.
No worries. Thank you very much.
That's about it. So thank you for watching. And yeah, like we said here, like give your opinion in the comments down below. What is your opinion on film criticism and audience versus critics? And if you like this, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. But then constructive criticism is always a plus. But if you did like it and you want to see more live streams like this or more reviews, even trailer reactions, podcasts, we do all kind of stuff here. Hit the subscribe button and the little bell thing so you're always updated when I release a new video, which is almost every day nowadays. But yeah, until next time, have a good one.